My name's Greg Steube. I represent District 67, which is southern Hillsborough County, East Manatee County, and northeast Sarasota County. I have a very diverse district in the sense that I go all the way from Riverview, Ruskin, Sun City Center, all the way down into Lakewood Ranch in East Sarasota County. So I have a lot of rural and agricultural areas, and then I have a lot of more upscale areas and country club type areas. So it makes it very interesting because I have a very diverse group of constituents to represent, which has made it very enjoyable. My background is actually in agriculture. I grew up working on cattle ranches, and my bachelor's degree is actually in beef cattle science. So I have a very production agricultural background, and then started getting involved in politics very early on in college and decided to go to law school. And so I have a legal background. And then from law school, I went to the military. September 11th happened my first semester of law school. So due to those events, I felt an obligation to serve. So I enlisted and was in the military for about 4.5 years. I did the infantry for about 1.5 years, and then I was in the JAG Corps for about 3 years. Did a tour in Iraq in 06 to 07, and then came back. Got out of active duty as a captain, and then got out of active duty in 08. I sit on Finance and Tax Committee, which is a very interesting committee because obviously we deal with all the tax issues that are coming before the legislature. I also sit on 2 appropriations committees. I sit on healthcare appropriations and I sit on justice appropriations, which is obviously challenging given all of our budget constraints this year and last year. I also sit on energy and utilities, and that's an interesting committee because you deal with everything from telecommunications to investor-owned utilities. And then I sit on the Select Committee on Water Policy, dealing with all the different water policy issues that we have, throughout the state. And that's the real challenge, is there's so many people in your community that want increase in funding, or at least to be held harmless in our budget cuts. And it's very difficult to do that given a year that we are not going to be increasing fees and taxes, and we're going to have to make difficult choices. And I thought last year, having served on healthcare appropriations, I thought that the worst of it was over and at least we wouldn't have to cut anymore, hoping that this year we wouldn't have to cut as much. But unfortunately, it looks like we're going to have a little bit of a deficit, and we are going to have to do some cuts. I have been happy with the House's version thus far of the budget. It'll be interesting to see what the Senate does and then what we were able to work out in conference this year. But it is a challenging year, and I've said to some of the groups in my district is, we would all love to give all of the money to all these good government programs, but it's difficult to do that because if I take some from you, then I have to give it to you, or if I give more to you, then I have to take some from you. So it's very difficult making those decisions, especially I sit on healthcare appropriations, so it's very difficult. You're dealing with the children's hospitals, you're dealing with developmentally disabled, you're dealing with mental health, and those are tough issues because we obviously want to help those people in our population as much as we can. So it'll be a challenging year. I just haven't seen anything that gives me any indication that the numbers are really going to change. So I think, we need to do what the will of the people is now and try to get a budget passed. And we can always build contingencies in the budget that if there is an increase in revenue in March or April, when they do another revenue estimating conference, that we can build contingencies in for the budget for that. So I think we can get it done in these 60 days that we're here. If it necessitates us to come back for a special session, we can come up here for a week and deal with whatever budget changes that we need to make. But I haven't seen anything to give me any indication that there's going to be a large change in the revenues in the next few months. I think the legislature should be very proud of the process this year. I think the numbers were, they didn't have that many public meetings 10 years ago, and we had 26 meetings all throughout the state where all of the public was invited to come and attend. I know I sent out email blasts to my constituents letting them know of both the Hillsborough, the Tampa meeting that they had, and then the Sarasota meeting that they had. So I think the legislature has tried to be very inclusive of everybody's concerns. I know they've taken more maps than they ever have in history, that they've taken more public input than they ever had in history. And I think they've done a really good job of balancing the constitutional requirements that we have, the federal law requirements that we have and trying to build districts that are fair and compact and follow the law. So I'm very proud of our chairman, Speaker Designate Weatherford, on the job that he did in the House as it relates to reapportionment. And I think that the citizens should be very happy about the districts that were drawn. So we'll have to see what the Supreme Court decides to do when the legislature moves those maps to them. I practice law and I do real estate litigation. One of the practice areas that I do is real estate litigation. And I have seen a real need for something to be done in the realm of foreclosures in the state of Florida. It's a real challenge in our state to really address this issue. We're the third highest in the country of the amount of time that it takes from start to finish for a foreclosure to go through the process. So all of these cases have been muddying up the court system. There's a lot of discord about how things are moving. So I really thought that this year we needed to address this issue in the state. So I drafted a very balanced bill as it relates to issues that the banks would have, issues that homeowners in a homesteaded protected property or in an owner-occupied property would have. And so we really tried to put together a balanced bill as it relates to the entire foreclosure process. They've taken some of my language and we've worked together with Representative Pasadomo. She has a foreclosure bill as well. So we're working through that process. We're still going through the committee's process. I'm sure there's going to be amendments. The Senate is also, Senator Latvala has a bill that mirrors our language. So I'm hoping that we can get something substantive this year to really help the people that are going through a foreclosure and then help the backlog that we have there of people being able to move these foreclosures along. This is a really interesting bill. It's called Next Generation E911. And currently your wireless providers aren't given the same protections as your landline providers for 911 services. When this bill goes through, it will enable wireless communication devices to be able to text 911 to a 911 operator, to be able to send pictures if you can't talk or text to a 911 operator. It'll give you the ability to take pictures or download GPS of a fire or what's going on in an emergency situation, so emergency responders can actually see pictures, information, GPS locations of where they're going to better help them respond to the different things that they're going to have to respond to when they get there. So it's a very interesting and kind of fun bill to do because we're really kind of taking the 911 arena and moving it to the next telecom generation of things that the telecom industry has the ability to do, but they're not currently given the same protections that your landline providers are. So it's a bill that has been very well supported throughout the process. I think it's unanimously passed all of its committees, and so I'm really looking forward to that bill moving throughout the process. I'm honored and privileged to serve as a member of the House. It's very humbling to be here, and it's an honor to represent District 67 and be a state representative. And I look forward to serving in the future and having a career here in Tallahassee.